women's empowerment as well, you'll often hear people say, well, you're helping women find their voices.
Meghan Markle signed a $100 million Netflix deal in 2020. By 2025, that deal was gone. Her cooking show flopped so badly that reruns of her old show performed better. Her lifestyle brand had to change its entire name. And sources say Harry has been pushing to return to England while she refuses to go back. There are rumors of tension, distance, and decisions that could change everything. What went wrong after they left the royal family? And why are people now asking if this fairy tale is finally over? The real story is just beginning. Meghan Markle came into the world on August 4, 1981, in West Park Hospital in Canoga Park, Los Angeles. And her story already began with a quiet push against the limits around her. Her father, Thomas Markle, a white Emmy-winning lighting director, and her mother, Doria Ragland, a black yoga instructor and social worker, had married in 1979 at a time when interracial marriage still drew looks and whispers. When Meghan was born, the hospital forms only allowed one racial box, and the staff wanted Thomas to choose black for her. He refused. He wanted her recorded as mixed race because he wanted both sides of her identity honored, even though it caused tension in the room. Meghan later said in interviews that she was half black and half white, and growing up, that truth sat at the center of her world. It followed her into classrooms, playgrounds, and later almost every place she stepped into, shaping her sense of self long before she understood how the world saw her. Her parents' relationship itself had already taught her what it meant to live between two realities. They met in the late 1970s on the set of General Hospital and married on December 23, 1979, at the Self-Realization Fellowship Temple in Hollywood. Their wedding was small but bold, and they faced stares and quiet judgments throughout their marriage, especially when Doria would pick Meghan up from school and strangers assumed she was the nanny. Even with everything around them pulling at the seams, they stayed together for 8 years until their divorce in 1987. Meghan was just 6. She spent weekdays in her mother's calm and modest home, and weekends in her father's Hollywood world filled with lights and cameras. She later said her parents co-parented well, and even though the divorce shook her, she never doubted their love. Moving between these two homes helped her learn how to adapt. She slipped between neighborhoods, circles, and expectations, and that rhythm shaped her emotional intelligence in ways she didn't yet understand. Her father's work gave her an early ticket into Hollywood. For 10 years, she would visit the set of Married with Children after school, walking through a world filled with adult jokes and off-color humor, while still in her Catholic school uniform. She was too young to watch the show at home, but she loved waiting for the end credits just so she could kiss the screen when her father's name appeared. Those afternoons opened a door into both the magic and the mess of the entertainment industry. She learned quickly that sets were chaotic, actors were vulnerable, and fame had darker corners. All of that settled inside her and eventually fed her love for performing, while also sharpening her awareness of how public life could twist things. Her paternal half-siblings, Samantha and Thomas Jr., were part of that early family picture too, but she barely knew them because they were much older. That distance later turned into a storm when her life became global news. Samantha sued her in 2019 for defamation, and Thomas Jr. gave interviews criticizing her. The estrangement that started quietly in childhood grew louder when she entered the royal spotlight, showing how fame can pull old family fractures into the open. School added another layer to her story. Meghan grew up in View Park, Windsor Hills, often called Black Beverly Hills, but she attended private Catholic schools like Immaculate Heart High School, where she was often the only mixed-race student in the room. Forms forced her to choose black or white, and she didn't know which box felt right. The cliques around her were divided too, with each group sticking to their corner, and she never fully fit into any of them. She filled her schedule with clubs not because she loved them, but because she didn't want to eat alone. Later, she said her teenage years were the hardest, because she was trying to fit into shapes that didn't belong to her. Those memories stayed with her and eventually fed her advocacy for inclusion. That awareness started much earlier than her teenage years. When she was 11, she saw a Procter & Gamble dish soap commercial that said women all over America were fighting greasy pots and pans. It bothered her so much that she wrote letters to the company, to a lawyer, and to Hillary Clinton, asking them to change it. Procter & Gamble listened and changed the commercial to say people. She later told Nick News that if something feels wrong, you should write letters, because one voice can shift things for everyone. That moment became her first taste of activism. And decades later, she and Prince Harry partnered with Procter & Gamble again on gender equality projects. It showed how early experiences can echo years later. Her teenage years carried the same struggle and the same push for belonging. She faced comments about her skin tone and hair texture, and Hollywood rejections reminded her constantly that she didn't fit into ready-made casting boxes. A genealogy test later revealed she was 43% Nigerian, a discovery that added another layer to a heritage that had always felt scattered. She battled self-doubt during those years, but she also learned to build strength piece by piece. Her father's career pulled her further into the world she wanted to enter. Thomas Markle won 2 Daytime Emmy Awards for his work in lighting, and Meghan often watched him navigate the pressure of TV production. She saw the glamour and the strain side by side. She saw how success demanded sacrifice, and she carried all of it with her as she stepped toward acting. Through all of this, her mother, Doria, stayed her anchor. Doria introduced her to yoga at 7 and filled her world with meditation, balance, and calm. That grounding helped Meghan hold herself together through the pressures of school, auditions, and later the weight of celebrity. Even in college, she practiced yoga several times a week, trying to keep her mind steady while the world around her felt loud and demanding. In 1999, at 18, she began a new chapter at Northwestern University in Evanston. She studied theater and international studies with a minor in African American studies, joined a sorority, and threw herself into a mix of academics and humanitarian work. She graduated on June 20, 2003, with a degree in communication, carrying the confidence that came from surviving hard years and thriving in demanding spaces. Freshman year also brought her first heartbreak when she dated Steve Lepore, a basketball star. Their romance lasted 5 months until he transferred to Davidson College in North Carolina. The distance ended it, and she felt the loss deeply. Friends said she was crushed, but she pushed through by focusing on her classes. It became her first lesson in letting go when something important slips away. After graduation, she returned to Los Angeles and stepped into the brutal world of Hollywood audition. Casting directors told her she was too light for black roles and too dark for white roles. She took tiny parts to survive, including small spots on General Hospital, CSI, 90210, and Fringe. She taught, modeled, and worked odd jobs to pay for gas and rent. She even lied about being a union member to get roles, a move that backfired and left her feeling embarrassed. Rejection lived in almost every audition room she entered, but she kept pushing because the dream felt bigger than the setbacks. Between 2006 and 2007, she worked as a briefcase model on Deal or No Deal. She later admitted she felt objectified and empty in that job, knowing she wanted meaning in her work instead of posing as a silent face on a game show. That frustration eventually pushed her to seek deeper roles and more intentional paths. Meghan Markle's life began shifting in ways she didn't expect when she walked into an audition room in 2011 and heard casting director April Webster tell her that she needed to know she was enough. Those words stayed with her, and they settled quietly in her mind as she read for the role of Rachel Zane on Suits. Soon after, she stepped into a character who grew from a paralegal into a lawyer. And while that story played out on screen, something similar was happening to her behind the scenes. Week after week, she became more visible, and the show carried her through 7 seasons from 2011 to 2018. She appeared in more than 100 episodes, and by the later years, she was earning about $50,000 per episode, close to $450,000 a year. It was the first time she felt the ground beneath her steady, and the role placed her in a space far from the usual Hollywood scramble. By the time she walked away in 2018, she had earned millions, and the show had given her a foundation she had never expected when she first entered that audition room. As her career grew, her wealth slowly took shape in a clear way. Before she ever met Prince Harry, estimates placed her net worth between $2 and $5 million, most of it coming from Suits. The later seasons alone paid her $50,000 per episode, and her film roles added more. She earned about $127,000 from The Candidate and around $360,000 from Remember Me. Outside acting, she built her own path with The Tig, her lifestyle blog, and designed capsule collections for the Canadian brand Reitmans that sold out almost as soon as they were released. Each piece added more independence to her life, shaping a future she could control. By 2018, the year she married Harry, her net worth stood near $5 million, a meaningful place for someone who had once accepted small guest roles on shows like Deal or No Deal and General Hospital. While Suits kept her busy, Toronto slowly became the city she called home. For 9 months every year, she lived there while filming, and during that time she slipped into the city's rhythm. She wandered through Trinity Bellwoods Park, visited Kensington Market, and built close friendships with people like Jessica and Ben Mulroney. Her simple, careful style caught attention, and soon the clothes she wore sold out across Canadian stores. She even created 2 capsule collections for Reitmans, drawing ideas from her character on Suits and her own tastes. Toronto gave her a life that felt separate from Hollywood, a calmer world where she could be herself and where she gathered a loyal circle of friends before the rest of her life changed. The success of Suits continued to follow her even after she left the show. The royalties kept coming in, and those earnings played a quiet but important role when she and Prince Harry bought their $14.7 million Montecito home in 2020. Reports noted that the rerun payments helped with the down payment and the large $14.1 million mortgage. The house had 9 bedrooms and 16 bathrooms, and the purchase marked a new chapter that her acting career helped make possible. Those royalties, paired with her other projects, supported her while she shifted from acting into life as a royal, showing that Suits had become more than a job. It was the base she kept building on. Even while her acting career grew, she was shaping another identity. In May 2014, she launched The Tig, a lifestyle blog named after her favorite Italian wine, Tignanello. She once explained that the wine gave her an aha moment because she finally understood all the terms wine experts used, from body to legs and structure. That tiny spark gave her the blog's name, and soon, The Tig became her place for sharing thoughts about food, beauty, travel, and fashion. She wrote posts between filming scenes, often from her trailer, because she genuinely enjoyed sharing things she loved. With time, the blog became a quiet competitor to major lifestyle sites like Goop, and she began dreaming of turning it into something bigger. The Tig grew fast. It wasn't just photos of clothes or plates of food. Meghan filled it with essays about feminism, stories from her travels, and interviews with people like Serena Williams, Yara Shahidi, and Priyanka Chopra. She talked about causes she cared about, shared her own recipes, and partnered with brands for sponsored content. The blog became a real business that earned real money, and her followers looked at her not just as an actress, but as a relatable voice who blended personal stories with advocacy. The Tig became a place people returned to again and again, and it showed just how strong her instincts were long before she stepped into royal life. Everything shifted again in April 2017, when she shut down The Tig. The message she left behind was warm and grateful, and she told her readers to keep finding those small moments of discovery that she called Tig moments. The choice saddened her fans, but she said she needed to focus on a changing life. Her biographers later explained that the closure helped protect her relationship with Harry and prevented speculation. The sudden end of the blog closed one chapter, and opened another as she prepared to step into the world of the British royal family. Her romance with Prince Harry began quietly in July 2016 when she was 35. A mutual friend, believed to be Violet von Westenholz, arranged a blind date at Soho House in London. The place had a strict no cameras rule, so they could sit without pressure while sipping chilled rosé and talking for hours. Meghan had joked earlier that she hoped to meet a nice English gentleman during her trip, and that night she found one. The energy between them was clear from the start, and within a few weeks, Harry invited her to Botswana. He later said that he realized she was his soulmate during that trip. No photographs surfaced from that first date, but royal biographers agreed that it started a whirlwind that carried them to their wedding in May 2018. Before Harry entered her life, Meghan had been in a serious relationship with Canadian chef Corey Vitiello. They lived together from 2014 to 2016, and their relationship seemed steady from the outside. But royal author Tom Bauer later revealed that Meghan was still living with Corey at the time she met Harry, and that the breakup came quickly afterward. According to these accounts, Meghan ended the relationship soon after Harry returned to London, and some reports added that she once charged Corey rent for a studio provided by her production company. The split was peaceful, but the timing stirred rumors in tabloids that were already watching her closely. Meghan had already experienced marriage before her royal life. She married film producer Trevor Engelson on September 10, 2011, during a 4-day celebration in Jamaica. She was 30 and he was 35. They had dated for 6 years before marrying, but after 2 years, they quietly separated in August 2013. Friends said the end felt sudden. Meghan reportedly sent her engagement and wedding rings back through registered mail. Engelson later remarried in 2019, while Meghan was preparing for her royal wedding. As her relationship with Harry deepened, secrecy became essential. They traveled back and forth between London and Toronto without anyone noticing, which seemed almost impossible. Everything stayed hidden until October 2016, when British tabloids exposed their relationship. Headlines focused on Meghan's biracial background and the idea of a royal dating an American actress. The press grew aggressive, and many remarks in the coverage turned racially charged. Harry released a rare public statement in November 2016, condemning the harassment and the racial undertones of the reporting. The wedding that took place on May 19, 2018, moved with a shine that almost blinded everyone watching, and the numbers behind it only made the whole moment feel bigger. The ceremony at Windsor Castle carried a price tag of about $45 million, and more than $43 million of that went straight into security because the world was watching and the couple needed protection at every step. Almost 29 million people tuned in on TV, turning it into one of the most watched weddings ever. The royal family covered the main parts of the event, but taxpayers carried that huge security bill, which later became a point of frustration across the UK. Meanwhile, details of the day kept adding up. Meghan's wedding dress alone cost $430,000. A $500,000 marquee waited for the guests. Another $430,000 went into music, and flowers alone reached about $157,600. Meghan is said to have paid for her own honeymoon, which touched around $172,000. There were 27 cakes. Fireworks brightened the sky. Everything combined into an event so expensive that it made the public question how far the royal lifestyle should reach into taxpayer pockets. As the world prepared to watch the ceremony, another storm was already spreading. Just a few days before the wedding, on May 14, 2018, news broke that Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, had staged paparazzi photos for money. He had signed a contract with a photo agency called Coleman Rayner. Those images showed him reading a book about Britain, lifting weights, adjusting suits. The Daily Mail published them on May 12. When the truth came out, the backlash hit quickly and hard, and within days, Thomas pulled out of the wedding. He spoke about a heart attack and surgery, but many insiders insisted the real reason was embarrassment over the scandal. Later, he even sued the media company, claiming he was underpaid and that the photos damaged his relationship with Meghan and the royal family. He admitted his mistake on Good Morning Britain, and the whole situation became one of the early cracks in a bond that was already fragile. Another moment began building behind palace doors around the same time. Princess Charlotte's bridesmaid dress fitting turned into a tense exchange between Meghan and Kate Middleton. Meghan wanted last-minute changes to Charlotte's hem and waistband. The in-house seamstress was struggling to keep up because the schedule was tight. Kate, still recovering from giving birth to Prince Louis 3 months earlier, felt the request was too much and said the dresses needed to be remade. Pressure filled the room. Harry later wrote in his memoir that he found Meghan on the floor, crying after the argument. Kate apologized the next day with flowers and a card, but the moment revealed how different their styles were. People inside the palace called it a two households dynamic, where Meghan's directness collided with Kate's focus on protocol. Months passed, and the two households theme only grew stronger. On January 8, 2020, Harry and Meghan released a message on Instagram saying they would step back as senior members of the royal family. The world saw it all at once, but behind the scenes, journalist Dan Wooten had known about the announcement for 10 days. The Queen in Buckingham Palace had no approval over the message. Within hours, the world reacted with shock. Meghan flew to Vancouver on January 9th, leaving Harry behind to work through family negotiations. William, Charles, and Harry met at Sandringham on January 13th for urgent talks. The Queen later issued a statement saying the family was supportive, but they needed time to finalize the plan. It was a moment that shook the monarchy because something like this had never happened before. When March 2020 arrived, the world suddenly changed as the COVID pandemic swept across every country. And in that same moment, Harry and Meghan quietly slipped out of Vancouver Island and moved to Los Angeles. Their first plan was to stay in Canada, but the border shut down on March 20th. Reports claim they flew by private plane, which sparked criticism because they had spoken so much about climate concerns. Their arrival in California was hidden. No sightings, no official announcement. By March 31st, they had fully stepped away from royal duties and began shaping a quieter life in Meghan's home state, where privacy felt easier to protect during a global shutdown. Months later, the quiet shifted into a louder wave when their Oprah interview aired on March 7, 2021. Nearly 50 million people watched as Meghan spoke about an unnamed royal expressing concern over how dark Archie's skin might be. She repeated the comment carefully, saying there had been conversations about how dark the baby could be and what that would look like. She refused to name the person. Harry added that he felt shocked and uncomfortable when it happened. The moment spread across the world and sparked a global conversation about racism within the royal family. Buckingham Palace said the allegations were concerning and needed to be addressed privately, but the public reaction had already taken its own shape. Meghan continued sharing heavy truths in that same interview. She explained how she had experienced suicidal thoughts during her time in the UK. She had asked for help, but said senior royals told her it would not look good for the institution. She went to the palace's Human Resources Department only to hear they could not help her because she was not a paid employee. She said she felt isolated, unprotected, and scared for her own mental well-being. That confession created a deep shock because it showed how lonely royal life could become when public pressure hides private pain. Right before that interview aired, The Times reported claims that Meghan had bullied royal aides. 2 staff members had reportedly filed complaints, saying they felt intimidated. Meghan's team responded by calling the allegations a smear campaign timed to damage her reputation before the interview. Her lawyer later said the claims were untrue, even though he acknowledged individual staff might have felt pressure in different ways. The timing of the accusations created chaos, and the public watched both stories unfold at the same time, each feeding the drama of the couple's exit. By September 2020, Harry and Meghan had already taken a major step into a new chapter by signing a $100 million deal with Netflix. The agreement covered documentaries, series, films, and even children's programming. Their 2022 docuseries, Harry and Meghan, became Netflix's biggest documentary launch, with 7.3 million views in its opening stretch. But by July 2025, the original contract ended without renewal. Instead, Netflix offered a first-look deal that was worth far less. It meant Netflix could choose to buy future projects, but would not have exclusive rights. Industry voices said the shift reflected a new era where streaming platforms preferred lighter commitments. The couple had gone from a huge, history-making contract to something much smaller, and the change marked a noticeable shift in their Hollywood journey. Then came the release of With Love, Meghan, in 2025. Expectations were high, but the show struggled from the start. It ranked 383rd in Netflix's first half 2025 engagement report, with only 5.3 million views. Reruns of Suits performed better. Critics called it self-focused, and ratings on Rotten Tomatoes hovered at 36%, while IMDb showed a 3.2. Even with those numbers, Netflix renewed it for a second season. Insiders said the renewal was more about convenience than success. Meghan's father criticized her again, this time for dropping the Markle name in her branding. The contrast between the couple's hit documentary and her underperforming series became another talking point in a long list of controversies. In March 2024, Meghan entered another lane by launching American Riviera Orchard, a lifestyle brand centered on jams and home goods. It carried a California theme and tried to blend elegance with warmth. But within a year, the brand shifted and reappeared as ever in February 2025. The early drops sold out quickly, yet behind the scenes, supply chain troubles, vendor issues, and rising costs pulled the brand into a difficult start. Millions reportedly went into PR, but product delivery lagged behind the hype. Trademark applications ran into technical irregularities but were not outright denied. As Ever continued trying to find its place, but questions about its long-term future followed everywhere. Around the same period, Meghan's half-sister Samantha filed a $75,000 defamation lawsuit in 2023, claiming Meghan's comments in interviews and documentaries caused humiliation and damaged her reputation. The case was dismissed with prejudice in March 2024, meaning Samantha could not bring the same claim again. Meghan's lawyer said they were pleased, while Samantha's side planned an appeal. By 2025, she was still trying to convince the court to reconsider, and the feud kept playing out in the public eye. As 2026 began, Meghan launched her Reset and Rituals campaign for As Ever. She posted warm, intimate photos on Instagram on January 1st, showing mornings with journals, coffee, and family moments. She described the year as her year of ease. Limited edition items tied to the campaign sold out fast. The entire tone shifted toward calm living, slow habits, and personal grounding, echoing the spirit of her old lifestyle blog from years before. While this new chapter unfolded, another tension started rising around Harry's wish to return to the UK more often. At 41, he felt a growing pull toward his roots, especially as King Charles's health declined. He wanted his children to know his heritage and connect with their grandfather. Meghan, now 44, resisted. To her, returning to the UK meant stepping back into a place where she had felt scrutinized and unwelcome. Friends close to the couple described the disagreement as heavy and deeply emotional. Their professional paths had also begun drifting apart, making the conflict even harder to ignore. Some outlets suggested it could even lead to divorce if they could not find a middle ground. Meanwhile, in early January 2026, Ravek began reassessing Harry's security level, and early findings suggested he still faced significant risk. If approved, his police protection in the UK would return to near pre-Megxit levels. The possibility of safer visits raised pressure on Meghan because it removed one of the major reasons she avoided England. The more likely the security upgrade became, the more urgent their family debate felt.